Hello my fiery friends, the Infernoman here with our latest gameplay and deck tech video to show you. In this series, we highlight a random deck on MTG Arena, and it can range from a spicy homebrew to a tier 1 meta deck that is hot on ranked. And if you do enjoy these videos that we make, all I ask for you is to give a like on this video and subscribe to the channel, as I would greatly appreciate your support. Now, if you like the deck we're playing today, I'll leave a link in the details below so you can give it a spin for yourself on Arena. Keep in mind that these videos will be pure gameplay, no commentary style, so you can enjoy the game. But if you do want to hear my deck tech analysis and thoughts, I'll leave that at the end of the gameplay. So without further ado, let's take the deck that you see right now and get started. And there you have it, everybody. That is our skeleton tribal deck for Historic. Honestly, I wanted to do this in Explorer, but there was just not enough options in there. So we kind of had to cheat a little bit and try to get a couple of extra cards that we can only get in Historic to play this deck. And as you kind of saw, it's as janky as it gets. And honestly, I actually really love this deck. This is a lot of fun to build. And here's why. You kind of saw that, obviously, skeletons on one hand are just not a very well constructed, for lack of a better term, deck, in the sense that you don't have that many options in terms of what skeletons you can use. I mean, we're using cards like Clattering Augur in order to hopefully get off, but there is one reason why I wanted to put this together, not just again because it's Halloween season, and not just because of the fact that, well, we've already done some, I guess you could say, Halloween tribal decks. I mean, we did werewolves, we've done zombies earlier this week. I suppose we could have gone the easy route and kind of just picked spirits, but that's been done to death. I wanted to do something that was just like, you know what, I have no hopes of this deck, but I just want to put it together because it's fun. And I really wanted to play this card specifically, Skeletal Swarming. You will see this card definitely is powerful and not to be underestimated. So real quick, Skeletal Swarming is a 5 mana enchantment where each skeleton you control has trample, attacks each combat turn if able, and gets +X+0, where X is the number of other skeletons you control. At the beginning of your end step, you create a tapped 1/1 black skeleton creature token. If a creature dies this turn, create 2 of those tokens instead. So that's the key word here, is if a creature died this turn. So we don't necessarily have to lose our skeletons, we can go after our opponents too. But the real reason why this card is so powerful is every time we are having to attack with our skeletons, even if they die, they just keep multiplying and get out of control. And that's the reason why we're doing this. We have a little bit of tribal support utilizing cards like Death Priest of Merkel, which gives us a +1/+1 to our skeletons, but the bigger reason why I wanted to use this is, as you can see, is that at the beginning of your end step, if a creature died this turn, you get to create a 1/1 black skeleton creature token. Yes, I'm going to point out right now, this is actually the buffed version in Historic thanks to Alchemy. I can't believe I have to say that again. But honestly, I can't ignore that buff. That buff alone is actually the reason why we're doing this. If you wanted to look real quick, I'll show you on screen right now. So this is actually the regular version of the card. You actually do have to pay a cost for it, but the buff version is reason being for utilizing this in this deck. It really helps us just build our skeleton army, and again, it helps us go wide and powerful very quickly. In order for us to ensure that we can still make sure we can still get our creatures some damage through, even if our opponent has some of the best blockers out there, we're also going to utilize Death Baron. Death Baron, our 3 mana other lord here, not only gives +1/+1 to our skeletons, but they also give them Death Touch. So even if our skeletons are a little on the weak side, as we keep growing the army, they will be not only powerful enough to push through damage, but also prevent any opponent from trying to constantly block our creatures. So keep that in mind when we use this card. Because our skeletons tend to die a lot, we're going to also utilize a single copy of Bastard of Remembrance. We're not really focusing too much on life gain and drain. This is here to help us make sure that we can maintain some small stability as we just keep recklessly attacking with our skeletons. And of course, on the lower end, we have a couple of the normal weak skeletons, Gutter Bones, Clattering Augur. The reason why these ones are also good along with this and Moss Pit Skeleton is because even as they die, with the right conditions, we can keep bringing these skeletons back, so then it just generates more value as the game progresses. Speaking of value, we'll need a bit of card draw to ensure we can get to the right creatures. So we have Deadly Dispute, fantastic card as always. We sacrifice a creature and artifact, and then we create a treasure token, draw 2 cards. So you can already tell some of our skeletons that can come back on their own with their own abilities, we can then just sack them from Deadly Dispute, create a little bit of mana, create a little bit of card draw, and then hopefully we can get these back in the game a little bit later. Speaking of other ways of getting more value, we have 2 copies of Malachor Rebirth. So when you cast this card, you'll lose 2 life. However, the creature that you cast this on will gain when the creature dies, return to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. And this is not something you want to use on your weak skeletons. You want to use this on something like such as your lords. Your lords, of course, will ensure that with this card, they can stay on the battlefield and just keep generating us that value so we can protect them when we need to. Otherwise, our other way of generating some card advantage is going to be Realm Walker. Realm Walker is an honorary skeleton. It's always our catch-all for any of our janky tribes that we do play, but it's a fantastic card. This 3 mana shapeshifter allows us to choose a creature type, which is going to be, of course, skeletons, and then we get to look at the top card of our library at any time and cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of our library. So hopefully, again, we can utilize this card to rebuild in case of maybe, say, a Wrath, or you basically name it. Our skeletons, again, just need all the help they can get. And then we finally have Bone Shards. Bone Shards is a fantastic removal card. Allows us to either discard or sacrifice a creature to destroy a creature or planeswalker for 1 mana. And of course, the sweet bonus is it's on flavor. Bone Shards just, I couldn't say no to that. So anyways, that's basically, again, what you see for the deck for you. You're just going to throw out your skeletons little by little. They are going to be a little slow. Some of them are weak because either they come in tapped, they can't block, and that just makes it a little tough on us on the early part of the game. But once we stabilize and we can get out Skeletal Swarming, sometimes as early as turn 3, it will keep generating so much value, our opponents sometimes will not have an answer to that. Otherwise, in terms of our land base, again, it's not going to be cheap, but this is, again, as janky as possible, so I wanted to go all out and hopefully try to generate as much support for our cards. But if you can't afford all these rares, that's totally fine. Remember, this deck's whole purpose is just to have fun, and if you just want to do some quick little modifications, I would say you can kind of cheapen out on the mana base a little bit, not because you couldn't do it without these skeletons, but honestly because of what we're utilizing, we really want to support this time around more of the creature package versus the land package. So just keep that in mind, but otherwise it's going to be a hodgepodge of a little bit of everything. You got a Bajuka Bog, Castle Lockwain for a little card draw, Hive of the Eye Tyrant for more graveyard hate, Phyrexian Tower to sacrifice and also generate some more mana, some swamps, a forest, Boseiju, Takenuma. We're going to utilize as many of our dual lands as we can afford to do in this deck. But one more time, if you have to, go ahead and use anything that's cheap. If you want to save up on wild cards, your call on this. And then finally, going over the sideboard, if you want to play this in best of 3, we got some Tormod's Crypts. Again, just going with the theme, so couldn't say no to that. Maelstrom Pulse for a little bit of removal that can either be spot or a full wrath, depending on what your opponent's playing. Crippling Fear is going to be our wrath of choice, but we also have a Haunting Voyage, not only for flavor, but also because if we foretell this, we can bring back all of our skeletons and then just, again, a massive giant army even after a wrath. Some Thoughtseize, again, is the catch-all for those control decks. Mass Vandals, these are mostly just going to be used for our enchantment and artifact hate. And finally, Golgari Queen Vraska herself. This also generates us some card advantage by sacrificing, but also we want to try to hopefully get to that final ability, which is whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, that player loses the game. But otherwise, that's going to be the deck for you guys. It's not going to be anything that's going to be super crazy to use. You're not going to expect this deck to kind of go off and help you get to Mythic. This was just something fun I wanted to do, something that just popped into my head once I saw that we never really got a chance to take advantage of this card, so I wanted to have some fun with it, and hopefully you get to enjoy this card if you want to play it, whether it's for the holiday season or if you just want to play it just because you love jank just as I do. If you are a fan of janky tribal decks, give this a try. I highly recommend it. It's surprisingly more powerful than people think. They underestimate it when they don't expect it, and I'm sure when you get those wins, you will not be disappointed. That's all I have for you today. Thanks again for watching, everyone, and just remember that no matter what you do play in the game of life, always be sure to burn bright. Later.